All right, continuing on with the notes for Chapter 1, we're going to discuss sections 4, 5, and 6 in this particular video as we continue talking about the business of voice acting. Let's talk about some of the realities of voice acting. The competition out there is tough. There are lots and lots of voiceover artists out there, people that claim to be voiceover artists anyway. And you've got the independent contractors that are completely out there on their own. You've got those that have agents. You've got those that have joined the Broadcasters Union. There's many folks out there, and their ability to do certain tasks range widely. The things that they're willing to do ranges wildly as well. So it is a rather tough field to get into, especially as you are starting out. Now, voiceover work is a part of show business. It can take many years of study and constantly being in the right place to achieve a level of success. In other words, yes, you have to work hard at what you do, but there's also just a certain amount of getting lucky, to be quite honest. There's also going to be a lot of hurry up and wait. There's time spent waiting on auditions and callbacks. There's time spent waiting on others. Time spent waiting on studio space. You do a lot of waiting as you go through the business of voice acting. If you work from a home studio, you'll be expected to deliver studio quality recordings. You will also be expected to have some basic production and editing skills. So if you decide to build your home studio, you need to know how that equipment works, how to make it do what it can for you. You need to know how to piece things together so that you're able to put out a complete package. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be expected to put in all sorts of effects and things like that. Some people do offer that service, but most of the time, if you are hired strictly as a voice actor, your job is to put out a quality, clean recording of your voice, and then the producers are hired to take that and put in whatever effects or whatever else they're going to do with what you provide to them. Producer expectations of a voice actor include delivering lines professionally in just a few takes. They don't want you wasting their time. They don't want you wasting studio time. They want you to get in there and do the job as quickly and professionally as you can. Producers also expect that you listen intently to their directions, pay attention to what it is they want, and be willing to confirm what it is that they want if you don't understand. Ask questions, but quickly get on board with what it is that they want you to do. They also want you to adapt quickly to changes in direction. Sometimes you might have a certain vision of what's going to happen, and then something happens that they need to go in a completely different way, and you need to be willing to adjust as necessary. Should you do voice acting full-time or part-time? Well, you have to ask yourself a couple of questions in order to answer that question. Do you want to work in a certain niche? In other words, are you a good character voice actor? Are you good at narration? Are you good at sounding like an authority? Do you have experience in a certain industry that would use voice acting? Certain types of businesses, for example. And the more niche that you offer in terms of your services, well, that's going to be a consideration in that there may not be as much work available. Do you need to move to a different city? The things that you're skilled at, is there a demand for what you do in a certain part of the country more so than where you are at the present time? That's a possibility. Or if you just want varied options, it might be to your advantage to go to a larger city where there is more work available overall. But there's also more competition in the bigger cities. Some other full-time considerations include the fact that you need to be available on a moment's notice. You have to be able to, whenever you get that call to go in for an audition, pretty much drop everything and do what it takes to get that audition done in the time that they need to have it done. You need to consistently market yourself. Maintain a website, communicate, network with others, use social media to get your name out there. Maybe even use old-fashioned communication like calls and letters, things like that. You may want to consider joining a union. The main broadcasters union, the main voice actors union is SAG-AFTRA. Now, if you're just getting started in voiceover, this will be a decision that you'll make sometime in the future. Generally, when you've joined the union, there's an expectation that you're at a certain professional level. So it's not necessarily going to be the place that an amateur just wants to jump in and get that union card. That's something that you're going to want to do after having a little bit of experience and being able to have a certain amount of confidence in putting yourself out there for major production endeavors to want to reach out to you and for you to reach out to them as well. Now, if you decide you want to do this part-time, there's some considerations there as well. It's going to take you longer to reach your goals because you're not working at this 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You're doing it in your off time. There's going to be options for different kinds of work than what you might normally expect to do in a full-time capacity. You might have more opportunities for corporate narration, for phone messages, for other smaller projects that you can do outside of a normal full-time job. You may find yourself working for little to no pay or working for barter. Really what you're doing is you're working so that you can kind of build up your portfolio, that you can have examples of your work under your belt. It's a great experience builder. The other consideration is that it's going to be difficult to deal with last-minute auditions. If someone calls you up and needs you to be available at a moment's notice, that's going to be more of a challenge for you because you're going to have other obligations besides trying to make it into the voice acting world. So as we continue talking about the business of voiceover, here's a debate for you. Are you an actor or are you a salesperson? Well, I think most of us that go into this business would think of ourselves as actors. But there's also that business side that we need to consider. As a voice actor, you must interpret the words in such a way as to effectively tell the story, to bring the character to life, and meet the perceived needs of the producer in terms of communicating the message, especially if you're doing a voice for a commercial project. Yes, you are there to lend your expertise, to lend your acting skills, to show off your talent, but you're also there because you're going to be part of a finished product that is generally going to be promoting something, whether it's promoting a particular story, promoting a product or a service, an image piece for a particular company. Basically, what we're saying is that just about every form of communication is trying to be persuasive in one way or another. And we tend to think of that in terms of a sales aspect. So just as much as we are acting, we're also involved in the sales process. And we need to think at least somewhat like somebody that is trying to convince somebody else to do something that the overall communication wants them to do. Your acting abilities are the vital link between the writer and the audience. You are helping to convey the particular message that the producer, the writer, the company, the client is trying to get out there. You are that liaison. So you're trying to communicate that and to capture the audience's attention to make sure that that message is being received. Every script is written for a purpose, and you must be able to find and give meaning to that purpose. And this is really important in that a lot of this is going to be on you to be able to determine the exact steps to take, I should say, in order for that to happen. With the rise of high-quality home studios, more and more talent are being asked to provide self-directed, unsupervised sessions. So you might get a gig to lend your voice to something, and instead of doing it in front of a producer and an engineer, you're doing it from home with your own equipment, and you're given some basic direction as to how to deliver that material. And you need to be able to figure out what exactly it is that they want and be able to give that to them. Now, as I kind of mentioned and alluded to before, virtually all voiceover is trying to sell something. Virtually all communication is trying to sell something. If we think of selling in terms of convincing, in terms of persuading, a lot of what we're doing is essentially a very creative, very well put together, persuasive speech. Obviously, there's commercials, selling products or services, trying to get an emotional response from a listener to motivate them to action. Go buy that new car. Subscribe to this particular service. What's the benefits? Why should they do it? Instructional products. Those are selling procedures. How to do something. In that aspect, you're persuading, if you're lending your voice to this, in terms that you should sound as though you're authoritative enough that you know what you're talking about so that people will trust what it is that you're saying and follow those instructions. Audiobooks, well, they sell entertainment. You're convincing those that are listening that the characters are real and coming to life in the scope of the story. Your performance may be repeated thousands of times on radio or television. You may reach more people in 1 minute than those that ever walk through the door of a business in an entire year. Think about different companies that you are aware of, but that you've never bought from them or you've never walked into their stores. How do you know about them? Well, you know about them because of their communication methods through advertising on TV, radio, the internet. You know about them because they've packaged their branding very well. Everybody knows what the golden arches are. Everybody knows what the little swish on the side of a tennis shoe means. You are being the voice representing a particular company when you lend your voice to the vast majority of different types of communication pieces that you are giving your voice to. All right, that's going to do it for this particular section of notes. In the next video, we're going to conclude the notes for Chapter 1.